Hi, in this tutorial, I'll talk about version control system. So in this tutorial, we'll talk about some scenarios to understand the need of version control system, advantages of version control system, typical types of version control system, and some popular softwares or application implemented the version control system. So let's stand a scenario. I have this project and my team is distributed among different locations and they're working on the shared code base. So let's say these guys making their changes. So it is impossible to share their changes. Let's say the first guy did some changes and on top of that the another guy needs to make some changes. So there is a problem of sharing or collaborating each other. So next, the version. Let's say somehow they are able to set up a central repository or central place where they're making their changes in the file system. But what if, let's say, everyone is making their changes? So tomorrow, let's say after 1 month, I need to know like what changes that this guy did it. Let's say they are making changes and after 1 month I need to know this what this guy did. So in that case, because we are not maintaining the versions or we are not maintaining the history, so it is impossible to backtrack. So that's the thing. History and backtrack restore is not possible. Let's say I have a production running on proper and later on we need some other requirements. So we made some changes and we move that to production. Let's say there's some issue came up and we need the previous stable version. So it is impossible to get the previous version because in the file system you will always get the latest version. Obviously, I'm not considering that you will be storing this somewhere. Let's take a scenario at a high level. Backup. Let's say I'm storing that shared code base on a system and somehow the system breaks or the system crash up. So in that case, you will lose everything. So now, how you can resolve these issues with version control system? So version control system are applications which actually maintain your code, which help you to properly code management. There are multiple version control systems available. There are a lot of implementation as well. The type of version control systems are also available. So let's say what is the typical scenario or typical use case of version control system? Say they are different. If you talk about the different softwares, different application, these VCS is implemented in a different way, but at a high level, what you must understand. Okay, so let's say I have a central repository or the central server where the code is maintained, and obviously your applications means your developers can have their own copy as well or cannot have. It depends on what kind of application you are using, but let's discuss as a scenario at a high level. So let's say I have a server where I maintain the code so that the first guy makes some changes and it push to the server, right? And so the second guy can take pull or can take those changes to their local repository, and when he made some changes, so he can push or the to the central repository his changes. Another guy, other guy, the other developers can take those changes. So that's the high level. So these people do their work in the local copy and then push to the central repository, and from the central repository the other developer or the other team can take their changes and they can be always updated. So that's the high level. So how VCS or version control system solve this problem? Collaboration and version. As we have a central repository, okay, so the each guy, let's say the first guy made changes to the shared file and push that to repository. As soon as you push or you commit, we'll see what is that commit and all in the coming tutorials in this series. Push their changes, so he make a version, and let's say another guy also doing the same thing. So this cycle goes on, and every commit you have some history, so you are creating versions. So what you will be doing at any point of time, if you need previous version, so you can get it. Okay, restore and backtrack. Now the same thing, same example. Let's say I have some functionality and that functionality is working fine on prod. So what happened, we got in new modules and we implemented that module on top of the previous version, right? If something break at the prod, so what you can do, you can get the previous snapshot or previous version, previous stable version, and you can redeploy that so that you can at least restore your code and you can backtrack. Like now all your developers were doing something, right? So you can backtrack using history which developer made what changes. So it's easy to identify the problem. Now, the version control system types. So basically there are two type of version control system. One is centralized, one is distributed. We'll see that in detail. Okay, centralized means the code is maintained at a central location. Okay, your developer make changes and push your changes to the centralized location. That's how it is. But in distributed environment, you maintain your code at a centralized place, and your developers means your client machines has all the history and versions of the work, means the same, they maintain the same information at the server as well as the client, means the developer. So they make their changes and they push their changes to the centralized place. So the difference is, in distributed environment, client means developer machine also has all the versions. Okay, now the example of subversion, centralized is a subversion and distributed is a Git. So we'll talk about Git a lot throughout this series. Now, there's some famous or mostly popular version control system: GitHub, GitLab, you know. Don't confuse Git with GitHub and GitLab. I'll talk about this in coming tutorial. Apache Subversion, AWS Code Commit, Microsoft Team Foundation Server, Bitbucket, Mercurial. These kind of, there are a lot of available. These are the most used applications. So what you can expect from this series? I'll talk about the Git basic, starting from scratch, and this is useful the beginner, absolute beginner. If you don't have any knowledge about Git, you are good to be here. Okay, I'll talk just from the scratch. Commands, obviously whatever the commands we have, I'll talk about the each and every command. The GitHub, I'll talk about the GitHub and GitLab. We'll start with the GitHub and then will the GitLab, and we'll see the different integrations of Git to your IDs, popular IDs. Okay, so this was the just a overview or the introduction tutorial. We'll see the lot of things in this series. So if you have any question, please do comment. Thank you.